Okay, this video is going to be about Windwalker's AI behavior, just kind of a overview and then maybe a little bit of a deeper dive. So this is combat as it stands right now. We're just gonna, uh, I'm already muting the audio. So essentially this is the player. The player has items, skills, level that's tied to the character, that's tied to the account, and the player can have a pet, um, and things like that. And as they play the game, they will be put into enemy encounters, boss encounters, where they will face against 1 to 3 enemies at a time. And these enemies can have similar skills to the players. Actually, yeah, a lot of the times, every skill you see in the game, um, the player can acquire, given that they have that skills class, or they are that skills class. So we're going to talk about how our AI essentially chooses what to do and what their AI like decision making logic is. So first, before I do that, we're just going to run through combat and see how that plays out. It's the player's turn. We don't have any like UI or blinking indicator that it's this person's turn currently. Just kind of this UI appears and disappears when it's the player's turn or when it's not. It's my pet's turn. He does a lot of damage. The AI goes. The AI goes again, and then the queue um, resets. So every time the player goes, never surrender. Job's not done. Okay. Every time the player anytime a character finishes their turn, they are placed back into the queue, assuming that they're still alive. At any point, if a character is dead, they are removed from the queue. Um, okay, and then we have like these skills. You can target an enemy, and if it's a melee skill, they'll go and deal a bunch of damage. Looks cool. Um, he's gonna do a lot of damage. Okay, looks like everyone's choosing to basic attack and not use any skills. That's fine. Um, let's see what was next. So we did a little combat demo and then broke down a little bit about how Windwalker's combat is done. This is my blog post that I'll link in this video. Have a few articles just about like basic game design, things I've learned from studying, interviewing, and yeah, I made like a little battle pass here. There's a picture somewhere here of a hypothetical battle pass that we might add to our game. Um, how we're balancing like certain stats, diving into economies of different games. And yeah, so let's go back to Windwalker. This is another game that I created here, kind of introducing what the game is. And then shifting towards AI, which is what we're talking about today. So we can focus on our threat system first. It's a little blinding for me right now. Let's see, where's a good place to... Okay, yeah, well, I guess I'll just let you guys see this. So our threat system is basically how our AI decides who to attack. So the character with the highest threat level is most likely to be attacked, but it isn't guaranteed that that person or that target will be the target of something. Um, Whoever has the threat has the highest chance to be attacked or targeted. Um, and on top of that, we have these variables that kind of indicate the chance of this AI casting or doing a certain action. So um, we have different types of skills, And for each type of skill, the AI has a chance of using that skill or that skill type. And I guess it's more visible and showed here. So this is the bandwagon standard enemy. Um, Upon launch, they're going to have different names. But essentially, what we do here as the game designer is to sort of tweak these sorts of things to kind of bring this character to life and add the characteristics that we believe this bandwagon standard enemy should have. And this is hugely related to like the balancing. Um, these enemies are going to be seen at like certain levels, so that's something that we have to take into consideration. So yeah, here I have this like sheet of all the mobs and certain things that are relevant. Some of this isn't done yet, but yeah, so this bud monster is seen from levels 1 through 10. Some of these you can see from 11 to 100 and things like that. And then also like at level 1, how much gold are they going to give? Like estimated, and like at level 10, how much are they going to give? And these are all estimations. Um, so that was a little bit of a side note, but I guess also ties into kind of our AI behavior, things like that. Um, yeah, so what I was trying to get to was that we tweak these stats and then we kind of give these characters a sort of like personality and characteristics. Um, and then the threat levels here, most of these will just kind of have like a baseline threat level. Um, and then what's interesting is that we can tweak these chance variables here. So the higher the basic attack chance, this should be capped at 100. I haven't made that change yet. That's okay. 100 meaning that at every turn, this character is going to basic attack. So even if it has skills, it's going to basic attack every time. And then you'll see what I mean by that in more detail in a little bit. But essentially, it's broken down to these things. So our skill system, there are target all abilities, which is actually like targeting all enemies. There's a single target offensive skill ability that's like swinging your sword at just one character or throwing a rock at just one character. These are all kind of bucketized into a single target offensive ability. And there's also the single target buff skill, and then expelling shout is actually any skill that will expel a negative status effect. Um, and sometimes you're going to want these characters, these AI, to be able to cast this ability to break them out of a stun or a freeze or a burning or something like that. And additionally, as designers, we're the ones that um, decide what type of skills these creatures should have. So not all creatures should have these spells clearly, but just for like the sake of testing and things like that, we're giving each character um, a different type of skill, or every type of different skill. So there's a single target offensive, as you can see, expelling shout. This is a target all ability, and then buff all allies, um, and then a healing ability here as well. So a different type of like, um, what's the word? There's like a different like hierarchy of skills and different categorization of skills. So if we're moving on to, let's see. All right. So here I have this flowchart that I created, and this is, what did I title it? So yeah, the Windwalker current combat AI move decision logic. So what happens first when it's a AI's turn, ally or enemy, they roll the chance that they're going to use a basic attack. So if it's 50, it's a 50% chance they're going to basic attack. Um, and then if so, they're going to basic attack. And then they're going to end their turn and then in queue the next character. Uh, Otherwise, they're going to check if they have a expel negative status spell, and if they're debuffed, and if their chance succeeds, they're going to cast that spell. Otherwise, they're going to check if they have a heal spell. Same here, go heal. If I don't have this, go heal. Is there an ally that has their HP under the healing threshold? And I believe I defined that threshold to be under 50%. And once again, what that means is this character is going to check if his teammate is if there exists a teammate that has their HP under 50%. And then if so, they're going to roll again to see that chance that they can cast a spell. And if it exceeds that, or if it's a success, then they will cast that healing spell and then end turn and move on. Buff spell, same thing. Um, so you'll see that these three things kind of have like the secondary layer that um, that they need to they need to kind of have a more intelligent, I guess, characteristic. Because if an AI is just using this expel negative status spell when they're not debuffed, it just doesn't make sense. And that was actually what the system was initially, just kind of put these skills into the AI and then just use a random ability, um, which works. And if that were the case, then we'd probably not have a spell like this. Um, that sort of constraint requires the designer to design skills that are more generally usable and not as situational as this. So that's kind of the pros and cons of the former system is that um, there are constraints, but we can kind of design. I mean, the cons would be that we'd have to design kind of skills that are not as complex, and I feel like that kind of takes away from like the more hardcore aspect that we're trying to appeal to. Um, and then with this system, it's going to be a little bit more complex, but it kind of allows for that sort of gameplay feel that we're going towards. Um, so yeah, like if they're casting this when they're not debuffed, it would make sense. If they're healing when they don't have um, when they have full health, doesn't make sense. If they're using a target all ability when there's only one enemy and then that spell only does like a fraction of the damage that they would normally do, doesn't make sense. So I envision that as we grow and kind of learn more about when should I cast these abilities, there might be like a tertiary layer or like a I don't know what the fourth layer, um, like diamond here, and they'll like move on. And then this flow might change entirely as well, because I could see it being a little strange that the first thing it checks is should I basic attack instead of should I use a target all ability or like everything at once and then weight it in a different way. Um, and then another thing that I've been putting on the back burner is actually calculating the chance of using a target all spell, um, because even though it says here 50, it's not actually 50% chance because it would only be a 50% chance if this fails, this fails, this fails, this fails, and then it would be a 50% chance. So um, the chance is relative to the former kind of flows executing or not. So yeah, that's one thing I'm gonna actually take note of right now. Um, Calculate skill chance relative to previous executions, something like that. And yeah, once it gets to here, it's going to either cast a spell or not, and then if not, instead of like moving on, it's going to just basic attack as default. And this flow actually didn't exist until like 2 days ago, yesterday, and it's been in our system for probably a month now because I haven't really touched combat. Um, and yeah, that just led to the AI just kind of breaking, and I couldn't figure out why. And once I added this flowchart and really mapped out our decision-making logic for our AI, I realized, oh, it's just checking here, yes, yes, and then if otherwise, it's just fizzling out and not doing anything. And then the queue was, um, it had the correct character, but that character was stuck and would not end their turn. So now they can end their turn successfully. This could easily just go to like skip their turn, or something like that. But for now, I think it makes more sense to just default into just using another basic attack. Um, so yeah, let's see, did I miss anything else? Bosses. Um, we don't have any different differentiation for bosses and enemies currently. I imagine I mean, a lot of the customization will come from like what skills they have, these chances. They'll probably be more likely to cast spells and do basic attacks. We could It wouldn't be too hard to kind of make them have phases where once you kill them, they come back to life or something like that. Um, but I imagine like our bosses will have a unique element to fighting them than regular enemies do. But yeah, that's kind of on the back burner for now. We're just trying to make sure that um, enemies are fun to fight against, and they're behaving in a way that's um, more logical than not. And that's just going to be something that we're going to constantly tweak. I think like Sid Meier said it best in like a GDC talk he had. People asking about like, oh, is the AI perfect yet, or is it good enough yet? And he laughs it off because AI is never good enough. It's never perfect until it's just kind of like up to the eyes of the person experiencing it, and um, just adding different tweaks and changing it to fit that mold of what the designer and developer kind of aspired it to be. And that's what we're trying to do. So, yeah, thanks for watching. Bye bye.